The icy winds of the uncharted planet howled through the dense alien forest, bending strange, crystalline trees under their relentless force. A group of human explorers, clad in thermal survival suits, trudged cautiously through the unfamiliar terrain. Their mission had been simple: scout for potential resources on this newly discovered world. But as with most exploratory missions, nothing ever went as planned. The planet, marked only as Zeta 9 on their charts, was proving to be far more hostile than expected, its environment riddled with unpredictable storms and creatures unlike anything catalogued before. The leader of the group stopped abruptly, raising a hand to signal the others to halt. Something was off. The dense underbrush ahead quivered unnaturally, as though hiding something alive. The group exchanged wary glances, gripping their tools and weapons tighter. They had encountered hostile wildlife before, but this felt different, calculated, almost deliberate. The silence that followed was oppressive, broken only by the faint whimpering sound that reached their ears. It was a sound none of them had expected, a soft, plaintive cry that tugged at their instincts. Cautiously, they moved forward, clearing the brush to reveal the source of the sound. Nestled in the hollow of a gnarled tree trunk was a small, trembling creature. It was clearly an infant, though nothing like any alien species the humans had encountered before. Its body shimmered faintly with a translucent glow, its large, tear-filled eyes reflecting the humans like twin moons. Injured and alone, it seemed utterly helpless. The group hesitated, unsure of what to do. Protocol dictated that they avoid unnecessary contact with alien life forms, but leaving it here to perish felt wrong on a deeply human level. Against the protests of a few cautious members, the group's medic crouched down and extended a hand. The baby alien flinched, but didn't run, its energy too depleted for resistance. With slow, deliberate movements, the medic scooped it up, careful not to aggravate its wounds. The creature let out a faint trill, a sound that almost seemed like relief. Whatever species it was, it appeared to recognize kindness, or at least the absence of immediate threat. The decision to save the alien wasn't without consequences. As the group made their way back to their base camp, the forest seemed to shift around them. Strange shadows flitted between the trees, and unidentifiable sounds echoed in the distance. It became clear they were being followed. The team's leader ordered them to move faster, their once cautious steps now replaced with hurried strides. By the time they reached the relative safety of their camp, everyone's nerves were frayed, but the baby alien remained calm, nestled in the medic's arms. Back at the base, the team worked quickly to stabilize the creature. Scans revealed it had sustained injuries likely caused by predatory attacks, though its physiology was unlike anything they had encountered. Its translucent skin pulsed faintly, almost rhythmically, as though responding to their efforts. It was clear the alien was no ordinary life form. The group's biologists speculated it might possess an advanced neural structure, possibly hinting at intelligence far beyond their understanding. But none of them could have predicted what would happen next. As the alien began to recover, its behavior changed. No longer timid and withdrawn, it started to observe the humans with keen interest. It mimicked their movements, its eyes following every gesture and expression. It trilled softly whenever someone approached, a sound that seemed almost communicative. The team couldn't help but grow attached, naming it something simple yet affectionate based on the sounds it made. But they remained unaware of the immense consequences their small act of compassion would bring. A week later, the group's worst fears came true. The shadows that had followed them in the forest were no longer just distant shapes. Predators, far larger and more aggressive than anything they'd encountered, began closing in on their camp. The creatures' strange, insect-like bodies glistened in the dim light, their razor-sharp appendages tearing through the thick foliage with terrifying ease. The humans scrambled to defend themselves, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. In the chaos, the baby alien, now mobile and seemingly aware of the danger, let out an ear-splitting cry. The sound wasn't just a plea for help, it was a call. A deafening rumble followed, shaking the ground beneath their feet. From the sky descended a massive figure, its glowing form dwarfing the predators. It was a fully grown version of the infant they had rescued, and its presence sent the attackers into a panicked retreat. The humans watched in awe as the adult alien let out a series of complex, resonant sounds. The baby responded in kind, its trills now imbued with confidence and recognition. The realization hit the group all at once. The baby alien wasn't just any creature. It belonged to a species of powerful protectors, beings that commanded respect and fear across the galaxy. By saving its life, the humans had unknowingly formed a bond that transcended cultural and biological boundaries. The adult alien, towering and majestic, turned its gaze toward the humans, its eyes conveying a profound intelligence. Without words, it communicated its gratitude and its promise. From that day forward, the baby alien became a constant companion to the group, its presence ensuring their safety on the hostile planet. The adult alien, though seldom seen, always lingered nearby, its protective watch never faltering. Word of the incident spread among human colonies, sparking debates and discussions about the implications of forming bonds with alien life forms. The humans who had saved the baby alien became reluctant heroes, their actions proving that compassion could bridge even the vastest divides. But as the group prepared to leave the planet, their mission complete, an uneasy question lingered in their minds. The adult alien's protective nature was undeniable, but its species' true capabilities remained a mystery. What would happen if others tried to exploit this bond? Could humanity handle the weight of such a powerful alliance, or would it lead to unforeseen consequences? As the group's ship ascended, the baby alien let out one final trill, its gaze locked onto its human saviors. It was a sound of farewell, but also of unbreakable loyalty. The adult alien watched from the ground, its glowing form a reminder of the extraordinary connection forged in the most unlikely of circumstances. The humans didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain: they had earned the trust of a species that could change the fate of the galaxy. And with that trust came both hope and responsibility. The baby alien settled into the camp with an ease that surprised the humans. It moved among them, its shimmering form blending seamlessly into the soft glow of their equipment lights. The medic, who had taken the lead in caring for it, noticed its injuries were healing faster than expected. Its translucent skin, once dull and riddled with scars, now pulsed with a vibrant luminescence, as though it was drawing energy from its surroundings, or perhaps from their presence. Despite the alien's calm demeanor, the group remained on edge. They had broken protocol by bringing it back to their base, and every team member knew the consequences if higher-ups found out. Yet none of them could bring themselves to abandon it. The medic, in particular, felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. Saving it hadn't just been an act of compassion, it felt personal, almost instinctive, as if some unseen force had guided their decision. Their unease grew as strange occurrences began to unfold. The first night after bringing the baby alien into the camp, the forest surrounding them grew eerily silent. The usual nocturnal calls of alien creatures ceased, replaced by an oppressive stillness. The team's biologist theorized that the presence of the baby might have sent a signal to the local wildlife, a warning of sorts. But what was the warning for? The question hung heavy in the air, unanswered. Days turned into a week, and the group started noticing other changes. The baby aliens seemed to be learning. It mimicked their gestures, echoed their tones, and even began to understand basic commands. The linguist on the team became fascinated, attempting to decode the soft trills and hums it emitted. Though its language was unlike anything they'd studied, there was a rhythm and logic to it, as if it were actively trying to communicate. One evening, while the team gathered around their makeshift dining area, the baby alien approached and placed its tiny, glowing hands on the biologist's arm. Its touch was warm, almost soothing, and for a moment, the biologist froze, unsure of what to do. Then, images flooded their mind, not like memories, but impressions, vivid and strange. They saw flashes of an enormous, glowing figure, a swirling sky filled with streaks of light, and an overwhelming sense of fear and loss. When the baby released its touch, the biologist stumbled back, pale and shaken. The team pressed for details, but the biologist could only describe the experience in fragmented terms. The alien, it seemed, wasn't just intelligent, it had a way of sharing its thoughts. Whether this was a form of telepathy or a biological function tied to its glowing skin, no one could say for sure. What was clear, however, was that the baby was trying to tell them something. The images felt like memories, perhaps its own, and they carried an unmistakable sense of urgency. As the days wore on, the group began piecing together fragments of the alien story. The flashes of light in the sky seemed to represent an event, possibly an attack. The enormous glowing figure was likely another of its kind, perhaps its parent or protector. The fear and loss were undeniable. Whatever had happened, the baby alien had been separated from its family, left injured and alone in a hostile environment. But why? Theories ranged from natural disasters to predatory forces, but none explained the strange connection the alien seemed to have with them. Their questions deepened when they found the remains of a strange structure not far from their camp. It was half buried in the dense foliage, its smooth, metallic surface covered in alien glyphs that glowed faintly under their lights. The linguist and engineer worked tirelessly to decipher its meaning. The baby alien grew visibly agitated whenever they approached the structure, emitting low, mournful trills that tugged at their emotions. It was clear the structure held significance, but uncovering its secrets felt like opening a door they weren't ready to walk through. Tension among the group began to rise. The leader, torn between their duty to the mission and their responsibility to the alien, struggled to keep everyone focused. The medic became fiercely protective of the baby, refusing to entertain any suggestions of leaving it behind. The biologist, haunted by the alien's shared vision, spent long hours trying to understand the emotional weight of its message. And the linguist, consumed by the glyphs on the structure, became increasingly withdrawn, speaking in fragmented sentences that hinted at patterns only they could see. Their unease turned to fear when they noticed new tracks around their camp, deep, clawed impressions that didn't match any known species. The predators that had stalked them earlier seemed to be keeping their distance, as though something far more dangerous had taken their place. The leader doubled patrols, but the group knew they were outmatched. Whatever was watching them, it wasn't acting on instinct. It was calculating, waiting for the right moment. The baby alien, sensing their fear, became more active. It moved between the humans, its trills growing louder and more insistent. One night, as a storm raged outside, it led them to the structure, stopping at its entrance and placing its glowing hands on the glyphs. The symbols flared brightly, and a low hum resonated through the air. The structure wasn't just a relic, it was alive in some way, and the baby seemed to know how to awaken it. The team hesitated, caught between their fear of the unknown and their desperate need for answers. The medic, driven by their bond with the alien, stepped forward and placed their hand on the structure alongside it. The hum intensified, and the glyphs began to shift, rearranging themselves into patterns that seemed to pulse with meaning. The linguist gasped, recognizing fragments of a language that spoke of protection, unity, and power. Before anyone could react, the storm outside grew impossibly fierce, as if the planet itself was reacting to their discovery. The baby alien let out a piercing trill, and the glyphs exploded into light. In an instant, the group was enveloped in a blinding glow, their surroundings dissolving into an endless expanse of shimmering energy. The sensation was overwhelming yet strangely comforting, as though they were being held in the embrace of something ancient and benevolent. When the light faded, they found themselves back at their camp, but something had changed. The baby alien stood taller, its glow now brighter and steadier, as though it had undergone a transformation. The group felt an unspoken understanding pass between them. The alien wasn't just a lost child. It was the key to something far greater, a connection that could reshape their understanding of life itself. Yet, even as they marveled at the revelation, the forest beyond their camp grew darker, the shadows deepening with an unnatural presence. Whatever force had driven the baby alien to them was still out there, watching and waiting. The group knew their journey was far from over, and the stakes were higher than they had ever imagined. The atmosphere around the camp grew heavier with each passing day. The baby alien's transformation had left the team in awe, but it also brought a lingering sense of unease. It was no longer just a vulnerable being they had saved. It now radiated a quiet power, its glowing form pulsing in a way that felt almost otherworldly. The group began to sense that the baby was connected to something far larger than themselves, something they had inadvertently become a part of. The strange tracks around the camp multiplied, and at night, faint sounds echoed through the forest, low, guttural growls that seemed to circle them, but never came close enough to be seen. The team had fortified their perimeter as much as their limited resources allowed, but the feeling of being watched never subsided. Every shadow seemed alive. Every rustle in the foliage carried an air of impending danger. The leader's voice was steady during their briefings, but their eyes betrayed the stress they were under. They urged everyone to stay alert, but the weight of the unknown was wearing them all down. The baby alien's behavior became more erratic. It would often move to the edge of the camp, staring into the darkness with its glowing eyes, emitting soft trills that sounded like warnings. When the medic tried to comfort it, the baby would press its hands against their chest, and once again, images would flood their mind. This time, the visions were more intense flashes of towering figures wreathed in light, locked in a desperate battle against monstrous, shadowy forms. The medic could feel the fear, the desperation, and above all, the determination to protect something precious. The glyph-covered structure near the camp seemed to pulse faintly at night, its glow mirroring the baby aliens. The linguist, who had become obsessed with understanding its significance, claimed to have deciphered fragments of its message. They spoke of an ancient conflict, a race tasked with guarding a powerful source of energy, and a terrible enemy that sought to consume it. The team exchanged uneasy glances as the linguist explained their findings. It was becoming clear that the baby alien was more than a lost survivor. It was a part of this ancient story, a story that was now unfolding in real time around them. One night, as the camp settled into an uneasy silence, A sudden, piercing screech shattered the stillness. The team scrambled, grabbing their weapons and positioning themselves in a defensive circle around the baby alien. The sound had come from the direction of the structure, and it was unlike anything they had heard before, an otherworldly mix of rage and pain that sent chills down their spines. The baby alien's glow intensified, and it moved to the center of the group, its trills rising in pitch as if trying to communicate something urgent. The leader made a snap decision. They ordered the team to move toward the structure, reasoning that whatever was happening, it was connected to the glyph-covered artifact. The baby alien seemed to agree, leading the way with an urgency that made it clear there was no time to waste. As they approached the structure, the glow from the glyphs grew brighter, illuminating the surrounding area with an eerie, shifting light. Suddenly, the shadows in the forest came alive. Dark, hulking forms emerged from the trees, their eyes glowing a sickly yellow. They were massive, their shapes indistinct but terrifying, like nightmares given form. The team opened fire, their weapons lighting up the night, but the creatures moved with unnatural speed, dodging and weaving through the chaos. The air was filled with the sounds of gunfire, roars, and the team's shouts as they fought to hold their ground. The baby alien let out a deafening trill, and the glyphs on the structure flared to life, casting a wave of light that pushed the creatures back. The team seized the moment to regroup, their breaths ragged as they tried to make sense of what was happening. The linguist, their voice trembling, pointed to the structure. "It's responding to the baby. It's protecting us." The baby alien moved to the base of the structure and placed its hands on the glowing glyphs. The light intensified, and the air seemed to vibrate with an unseen force. The creatures hesitated, their movements faltering as if the light was too much for them to bear. But then, from the depths of the forest, a new sound emerged, a low, resonant growl that seemed to shake the very ground beneath their feet. From the shadows stepped a figure larger than any of the others, its form wreathed in darkness that seemed to absorb the light around it. Its eyes burned with an intensity that froze the team in place. The baby alien turned to face it, its glow shifting to a brilliant white. The medic felt an overwhelming sense of resolve emanating from the baby, as if it was preparing for a confrontation it could not avoid. The massive creature let out a roar, and the smaller ones surged forward, their hesitation gone. The team fought desperately, their weapons barely slowing the onslaught. The leader barked orders, trying to keep everyone coordinated, but it was clear they were being overwhelmed. The baby alien stepped forward, its glow spreading outward in a protective shield that pushed the creatures back. It looked at the team, its trills filled with a mixture of urgency and sorrow, as if it was trying to tell them something. The linguist, who had been studying the glyphs even in the chaos, suddenly shouted, "It needs us to activate the structure. It can't do it alone." The team hesitated for only a moment before rallying around the baby. Following the linguist's instructions, they placed their hands on the glowing glyphs, their minds instantly flooded with a surge of energy and images. They saw the baby's memories, its home, its family, the war that had torn them apart, and the hope that had driven it to seek refuge with them. As the team worked together, the structure began to change. The glyphs rearranged themselves, forming intricate patterns that pulsed with a rhythm like a heartbeat. The light grew brighter, enveloping the baby alien and the team in its glow. The creatures recoiled, their dark forms writhing as if in pain. The massive figure let out a furious roar, charging toward the group with a speed that defied its size. The baby alien stepped forward to meet it, its glow now blinding. The two forces collided in a clash of light and darkness, the shockwave knocking the team off their feet. The ground beneath them trembled, and the air was filled with an unearthly hum as the battle between the baby alien and the monstrous figure reached its peak. The team could only watch, their hearts pounding, as the fate of not only themselves, but perhaps the entire planet hung in the balance. The collision between the baby alien and the monstrous figure sent a wave of energy rippling through the forest, lighting up the night sky as if a star had exploded right above them. The team shielded their eyes, the force so intense it felt like the air was being ripped apart. When the blinding light subsided, the battlefield was eerily still. The massive, shadowy figure was gone, but the baby alien lay motionless at the base of the glowing structure, its light dim and flickering like a dying ember. The team rushed to its side, their panic mounting as they saw the small alien's fragile state. Its once strong glow was reduced to a faint shimmer, and its trills had become weak, almost inaudible. The medic tried everything to stabilize it, but nothing seemed to work. The linguist, still transfixed by the glyphs, noticed something unusual. The patterns were shifting again, faster this time, as though responding to the baby alien's fading energy. The structure's glow pulsed erratically, casting long, wavering shadows that seemed alive. Before anyone could react, a low rumble echoed through the ground. The linguist's voice trembled as they deciphered the glyph's new arrangement. "It's opening. The structure isn't just a relic. It's a gateway." The words barely left their lips when the ground beneath the team began to quake. A crack formed at the base of the structure, spreading outward in jagged lines, and from within, an otherworldly light poured out, unlike anything they had seen before. It was warm yet cold, inviting yet ominous, and it drew their gaze as if it held all the answers they had been searching for. The leader barked orders, trying to pull the team back, but the baby alien, with what little strength it had left, raised a hand toward the gateway. Its intentions were clear. It wanted to go through. The medic hesitated, torn between protecting it and respecting its wishes. Then, as if the decision was made for them, the light from the gateway surged, pulling the baby alien and the entire team forward in an irresistible wave. The sensation was indescribable. It felt as though they were suspended in a void, neither falling nor floating, surrounded by a kaleidoscope of shifting colors and incomprehensible sounds. When the pull released them, they found themselves standing in a place that defied logic. The sky was a swirling canvas of vibrant hues, and the ground beneath their feet was smooth, almost glass-like, reflecting their bewildered faces. Towering structures of light and shadow rose in the distance, their forms constantly shifting as if alive. The baby alien, now glowing faintly again, trilled weakly and pointed toward the horizon. The linguist, still deciphering the glyphs etched faintly on the structures around them, gasped. "This is its home," they whispered. "Or what's left of it." The realization hit the team like a punch to the gut. They were standing in the ruins of a once thriving civilization, a place that had been ravaged by the same shadowy force they had just fought. But the eerie stillness was short-lived. From the horizon, a new threat emerged. A series of dark, shifting forms began to coalesce, their movements faster and more coordinated than those of the creatures they had faced before. These weren't mindless beasts. They moved with intent, with purpose, and their eyes burned with an intelligence that sent a chill down the team's spines. As the team prepared for another fight, the linguist cried out, their voice breaking with urgency. "These aren't just remnants. They're scouts. The real enemy. It's coming." The words hung in the air like a death knell, the implications sinking in. This wasn't just a battle. This was the prelude to something far larger, a conflict that could spread beyond this alien realm and into their own world if they failed to stop it. The baby alien struggled to its feet, its glow intensifying as if drawing strength from the remnants of its home. It turned to the team, its trills taking on a sharper, more urgent tone. The medic, who had spent the most time with it, closed their eyes and focused, trying to understand. Images flooded their mind once more, an ancient power buried deep within this realm, a final defense left behind by the baby alien's kind. But activating it required a cost, one that the baby aliens seemed ready to pay. Before the team could protest, the baby alien began to move toward the heart of the shifting structures. The scouts closed in, their dark forms blotting out the surreal light of the sky. The leader shouted orders, the team forming a protective circle around the baby alien as they fought to hold off the advancing enemy. The air was thick with tension, every second stretching into an eternity as they battled wave after wave of relentless foes. Then, as the baby alien reached the central structure, a new sound filled the air, a deep, resonant hum that seemed to emanate from the very core of the alien world. The glyphs on the central structure blazed to life, brighter than anything they had seen before, casting the entire area in a blinding light. The baby alien turned back to the team, its glow now matching the intensity of the glyphs, and for a moment, they could all feel its gratitude, its resolve, and its sorrow. The linguist's voice broke through the chaos, their words barely audible over the deafening hum. It's going to merge with the energy source. It's sacrificing itself to stop them. The team's protests were drowned out by the surge of energy that followed. The baby alien placed its hands on the central structure, and the light exploded outward in a wave that consumed everything in its path. The scouts disintegrated, their forms dissolving into nothingness, and the dark presence that had loomed over the team was erased in an instant. But as the light faded, so did the baby alien. It was gone, its small form absorbed into the energy that now pulsed through the alien world, restoring a faint semblance of its former glory. The team stood in stunned silence, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had witnessed. They had saved the baby alien, only to watch it give everything to protect them and their world from a threat they could barely comprehend. The gateway reappeared behind them, its light softer now, inviting them to return home. As they stepped through, back into the familiar forest where their journey had begun, the leader turned to look at the structure one last time. The glyphs were still glowing faintly, a testament to the sacrifice that had been made. The team knew they would carry the memory of the baby alien with them forever, its legacy a reminder of the courage and kindness that had transcended the boundaries of species and worlds. And as they began the long journey back to their base, they couldn't help but wonder what other secrets did the universe hold, waiting to be discovered. The forest felt unnaturally still as the team emerged from the alien gateway, their minds heavy with the weight of what they had just witnessed. The baby alien sacrifice had left an indelible mark on each of them, a profound sense of loss and gratitude mingling in the silence. The gateway hummed softly behind them, its light dimming as though it, too, was mourning the loss of the small being that had given everything to ensure their safety. But just as the leader motioned for the team to regroup, a faint vibration beneath their feet made them freeze. The ground trembled subtly, and a soft light emanated from the area where the alien structure had once stood. At first, they thought it was residual energy from the gateway, a final echo of the baby alien's power. But the light began to grow, shifting and pulsating like a heartbeat. Then came the sound, a high-pitched trill, faint but unmistakable. The medic turned sharply, their breath catching in their throat. It's the baby, they whispered, hope flickering in their eyes. Before anyone could respond, the light coalesced into a shimmering form, a small figure, glowing faintly, yet unmistakably familiar. The baby alien stood before them, but it was different now. Its once fragile body seemed more solid, its light steadier, and its presence radiated a quiet strength that hadn't been there before. It looked at the team, its large, expressive eyes filled with something new understanding. The leader took a cautious step forward, unsure if this was truly the same being they had bonded with or some remnant of the alien energy that had consumed it. The linguist's voice trembled as they spoke. The glyphs mentioned something about rebirth. Maybe it wasn't an end for the baby, but a transformation. The baby alien trilled softly in response, its tone no longer weak but vibrant, resonating with an unearthly melody that seemed to reverberate through the air. It raised one hand and the forest around them began to change. The dead foliage revived, colors blooming back into the world as if life itself were being restored. But the moment of awe was short-lived. From the shadows of the forest, the dark forms began to reappear. The destruction of the scouts had not eradicated the threat entirely. It had only delayed it. These creatures were different, larger, more menacing, their movements synchronized in a way that suggested they were directed by a higher intelligence. The team braced themselves, their weapons drawn, but the baby alien stepped forward, its glow intensifying until it was almost blinding. The dark creatures hesitated, their advance faltering under the brilliance of the baby alien's light. The team could feel the tension in the air, the moment balanced on a knife's edge. Then, with a sharp, resonant trill, the baby alien unleashed a wave of energy that rippled outward, enveloping the creatures. But instead of destroying them, the energy seemed to freeze them in place, their forms flickering as though caught between dimensions. The leader glanced at the linguist, who was frantically interpreting the glyphs that had reappeared on the nearby trees. "It's offering them a choice," the linguist said, their voice tinged with amazement. "It's showing them another way, a chance to exist without destruction." The team watched in stunned silence as the dark creatures began to dissolve, not into nothingness, but into smaller, less menacing forms. They scattered into the forest, their presence no longer oppressive but strangely harmonious, as if the baby alien's energy had rewritten their nature. The team lowered their weapons, a mix of relief and disbelief washing over them. The baby alien turned back to them, its light softer now, and let out a series of trills that the medic instinctively understood. It was thanking them, not just for saving it, but for giving it the strength to save its world and theirs. But just as the tension began to ease, a deep, resonant sound echoed from the direction of the alien gateway. The team spun around, their hearts sinking as they saw the gateway reactivating, its light now a sickly green. From the depths of the gateway emerged a massive figure, far larger than any of the creatures they had faced before. Its form was indistinct, a swirling mass of shadow and energy, but its presence was unmistakably malevolent. This was the true source of the darkness, the entity that had driven the scouts and the shadow creatures to consume and destroy. The baby alien stepped forward again, its light flaring as it prepared to confront this final threat. But the leader placed a hand on its small shoulder, shaking their head. "Not alone," they said firmly, their voice steady despite the fear gripping them. The team moved as one, forming a protective circle around the baby alien. The entity loomed closer, its presence so overwhelming it felt like the air itself was being pulled toward it. But the baby alien raised its hands, its light merging with the energy of the team's technology and forming a barrier that held the entity at bay. The linguist shouted above the deafening roar of the entity's energy. "The glyphs, they say it can't be destroyed, only contained. We have to trap it in the gateway." The leader nodded, barking orders as the team worked quickly to reconfigure their equipment, using the energy readings from the gateway to amplify the baby alien's power. The entity thrashed against the barrier, its shadowy tendrils reaching for the team, but the baby alien stood firm, its light unwavering. Finally, with a coordinated effort, the team activated the gateway, the combined energy surging into a vortex that began to pull the entity back. The baby alien let out a triumphant trill, its light blazing brighter than ever as it directed the energy toward the gateway. The entity roared, its form distorting as it was dragged into the vortex. The ground shook violently, and for a moment it felt as though the entire forest would collapse into the gateway. Then, with a deafening crack, the gateway sealed itself, the sickly green light replaced by a calm, golden glow. The forest fell silent once more, the air thick with the aftermath of the battle. The baby alien's glow dimmed, and it turned to the team, its trills now soft and melodic. The leader knelt beside it, their voice filled with quiet admiration. "You did it. We did it." But as the team began to gather their gear, ready to return to their world, the linguist noticed something in the glyphs, a warning they hadn't seen before. "The gateway isn't fully sealed," they said, their voice trembling. "It's stable for now, but if the entity ever regains its strength..." Their words trailed off, the implication clear. The baby alien looked at them, its expression unreadable, and then pointed to its own chest. It let out a single, clear trill, and the leader's eyes widened in understanding. "It's staying," the leader said softly. "It's going to guard the gateway." The team protested, their voices filled with emotion, but the baby alien shook its head, its decision final. It reached out, placing a glowing hand on each of them, a final gesture of gratitude and farewell. Then it turned toward the gateway, its small form standing tall and resolute against the vast alien structure. As the team made their way back through the forest, the leader turned for one last look. The baby alien stood before the gateway, its light blending with the golden glow, a silent sentinel ensuring that the darkness would never escape again. The team knew they would carry this moment with them forever, a testament to the bond that had been forged between their worlds, a bond of trust, sacrifice, and hope. The forest was quiet then, but it wasn't the silence of desolation. It was the stillness of healing, of nature reclaiming its rhythm after a storm. The team walked slowly, their steps heavy with the weight of what they had experienced. None of them spoke as they made their way back to the camp. Words felt inadequate to capture the enormity of what had happened. Each member carried their own thoughts, fragments of the encounter playing on a loop in their minds. The baby alien's resolute stance before the gateway, the blinding light of its power, and the sacrifices made all of it had etched itself deeply into their souls. When they reached the edge of the clearing where their temporary base was set up, the leader stopped and turned to face the team. Their expression was a mix of exhaustion and determination. "We need to document everything," they said. "Not just for us, but for anyone who comes after us. This isn't just a story about survival. It's about something much bigger: understanding, connection, and responsibility." The others nodded, the gravity of the task sinking in. They weren't just witnesses. They were now custodians of a truth that needed to be preserved. As they began unpacking their recording equipment and writing down their observations, the linguist took a moment to gaze back toward the forest. They couldn't see the gateway from here, but they could feel its presence, a faint hum in the air that seemed to resonate with their heartbeat. "Do you think it'll ever leave its post?" they asked quietly, not directing the question to anyone in particular. The medic, busy cataloging samples, paused and looked up. "I think it knows what's at stake. It made its choice, and I don't think it sees it as a sacrifice. It's just doing what it was meant to do." The leader approached the linguist and placed a hand on their shoulder. "It might not leave, but that doesn't mean it's alone. We owe it to that little one to ensure its story is told. And maybe, someday, someone will find a way to truly seal that gateway for good." Days turned into weeks as the team worked tirelessly to compile their findings. They sent encrypted transmissions to Earth, carefully omitting sensitive details that might be misinterpreted or misused. They knew they were walking a fine line between revealing the truth and protecting it. Governments and corporations would undoubtedly be interested in what they had discovered, but the team was determined to control the narrative. This wasn't about exploiting alien technology or resources. It was about honoring the bond they had formed with a being that had shown them the best of what life could be. As they prepared for their departure, the team gathered around the campfire one last time. The fire crackled softly, its warmth a welcome contrast to the cool night air. Each member shared their reflections, their voices filled with a mixture of pride and sorrow. The engineer spoke about the awe they felt witnessing the baby alien's abilities and how it had inspired them to rethink everything they knew about energy and life itself. The medic talked about the deep empathy they had felt, not just for the baby alien but for the shadow creatures as well, understanding that even the darkest forms of life had their own struggles. The linguist was the last to speak. They hesitated, their gaze fixed on the flames. "I've spent my life studying languages, trying to understand how we communicate and connect. But what I felt out there when it looked at me, when it trusted us, I realized that understanding doesn't always come from words. Sometimes it's in the actions, the choices we make. That little one taught me more about humanity than I ever thought possible." The leader smiled, their eyes reflecting the firelight. "And that's why we're here. Not just to explore or to survive, but to grow, to become better than we were. If we ever forget that, then all of this, everything we've been through, will mean nothing." When the day of their departure finally arrived, the team stood at the edge of the forest, their ship waiting in the clearing. They each turned to look back one last time, their hearts heavy but hopeful. The leader raised a hand in a silent salute, a gesture of respect and gratitude. They knew the baby alien wouldn't see it, but it didn't matter. The gesture was as much for them as it was for the small, glowing being that had changed their lives. As the ship lifted off, the forest stretched out below them, a patchwork of green and gold that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. The gateway was hidden beneath the canopy, but its presence was a constant, a reminder of the bond that now linked two very different worlds. The team watched in silence as the planet grew smaller, their thoughts already racing ahead to what awaited them on Earth. They knew their journey was far from over. The real challenge would be sharing their story in a way that honored the truth without inviting exploitation. Back on Earth, the team faced skepticism and scrutiny. Their accounts were dissected, their motives questioned, but they remained steadfast, presenting their evidence with unwavering conviction. They found allies among scientists, historians, and even artists, people who saw the value in their story and helped amplify their message. Slowly but surely, the narrative began to shift. The baby alien story became a symbol of unity and hope, a reminder that even in the vastness of the cosmos, connections could be forged and understanding could prevail. Years later, the team reunited at a conference dedicated to interstellar ethics and exploration. They had all taken different paths, but remained connected by their shared experience. As they stepped onto the stage to share their story once more, the leader looked out at the audience, their hearts swelling with pride. They knew the baby alien's light had not only illuminated their path, but had sparked a flame that now burned in the hearts of countless others. In the end, it wasn't just about saving a baby alien or protecting a planet. It was about what they had learned about themselves, about each other, and about the boundless potential of life. And as they told their story to the world, they knew that somewhere, deep in the forest of a distant planet, a small glowing being stood watch, its light a beacon of hope for all who dared to look beyond the stars.